He slammed his fist against my door like he owned my soul, screaming, "You people never last long in my buildings." But I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. Because one day, I'd own his name, his keys, and every brick he ever spat on. Chicago has a way of swallowing people whole. The wind doesn't just bite, it tears. The streets don't just echo, they scream. And in the middle of it all, I stood on the third floor of a building that never wanted me there. My name is Monica Braxton, born and raised in Southside, where grit grows faster than grass. My mama worked two jobs, nursing homes during the day and cleaning offices at night, just to keep the lights on. She taught me two things early: never let anyone speak over your voice, and if a door won't open, build a new house. So I became a nurse. Not for the money, God no, but because I wanted to do something with these hands, besides folding laundry or praying in the dark. I wanted to heal people, help them breathe again. And for a while I did. I had a steady job at St. Jude's, a one-bedroom with cracked linoleum floors, and a peace that came after years of surviving chaos. Then the pandemic came. First, they cut hours. Then they cut me. Suddenly, the hospital that once called me essential treated me like a burden. No warning, no thank you, no severance. Just a box of my things and a half-hearted, "We wish you the best." I walked out with my scrubs in one arm and my pride in the other, both too stained to wear again. I scraped by for a while, picked up temp work where I could, answered phones, babysat, even cleaned for a woman who called me girl, like it was my first name. Anything to pay rent on that dusty little unit at 218 West Carter Ave. The place was no palace, but it had something priceless: quiet. And after a life of noise, quiet felt like gold. But quiet doesn't last in buildings owned by men like Connor Fields. The first time I met him, he didn't say hello. He didn't even look at me. Just tossed a set of keys onto the counter like he was feeding a dog. Said, "You stay on your side, I'll stay on mine." Then turned and walked out. I should have walked out too, but I didn't. Because like so many black women before me, I was tired of running. At first, it was little things. The mailbox would be jammed and maintenance wouldn't come. My heat sputtered out in January. 3 calls, 2 weeks, nothing. I used to think maybe it was just bad management. Maybe he was overwhelmed. But then I saw how quickly he fixed the upstairs toilet for the white girl who'd just moved in. That was the first time I knew it wasn't neglect, it was a message. He didn't want me there. And he wasn't shy about it. He called me trouble without ever knowing my name. He said things like, "I've seen your type," and "This neighborhood used to be nice." Every month, like clockwork, he'd knock on my door 2 days before rent was due just to remind me. "You know it's the first soon," he'd say, eyes glinting. "Don't make me chase you. I always paid early." Always, but it was never enough. Not for him. One day, I came home from a shift, exhausted, my feet on fire, my spirit limp, and found a warning on my door. Not a late notice, not a bill, just a handwritten scrap of paper. "Tenant causing disturbance, final warning." Disturbance? I didn't even own a TV. I remember standing in that hallway, staring at that paper, the fluorescent light above me blinking like it was laughing. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but fury. Because this wasn't about rules. This was about me. He didn't want a quiet tenant. He wanted a silent one. So I marched down to his office, if you could call that mildew-smelling broom closet an office, and slammed that paper on his desk. "What's this?" I asked. He didn't look up. Just sipped his coffee and said, "If you don't like how I run things, there are plenty of shelters in the city." Something in me snapped. Not loudly. Not like thunder. More like the slow, sharp snap of a bone breaking clean. I leaned in and whispered, "I'm not leaving." He smiled. "We'll see." From that day, it wasn't just about rent anymore. It was about power. A battle line had been drawn, and he was daring me to cross it. And I would. But not the way he expected. Because I didn't come from comfort. I came from women who fought invisible wars every day and still found time to braid your hair before school. He could threaten me, ignore me, even try to erase me. But he couldn't stop what was coming. Not once I made up my mind. And oh, did I make up my mind? The knock came before sunrise. It was cold. The kind of Chicago cold that slices through window cracks like a thief. I was still wrapped in the blanket my mama crocheted years ago, half asleep, dreaming of something warm. Then, bang, 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 I jolted upright. 3 loud, angry fists against the door. Not the polite knock of a neighbor. No, this was the kind of knock that made your blood wake up before your body. I swung my feet to the floor, heart already racing. I knew who it was. Open up! A voice growled. I didn't have to look through the peephole. Connor Fields had a voice like broken gravel soaked in whiskey. It slithered through the hallway like mold. I opened the door just a crack, enough to see his red face and furrowed brow. What is it? I asked, voice hoarse. He didn't answer, just shoved a crumpled notice toward me like it was a loaded weapon. My eyes scanned the top, notice of termination of tenancy. 5 days to vacate. I blinked. What? He smirked. You've been a problem. You've had your final warning. Time's up. I looked at the paper again. No legal reason, no complaint, no court stamp, just his name scribbled in the bottom like he thought he was the mayor of the block. This isn't legal, I said, my voice steadying. Neither is being a nuisance, he hissed. Neighbors have complained, said you're noisy, said you bring strange people around, said they don't feel safe. It took everything in me not to spit. I barely had friends over. I didn't even own a dog. The only strange people who came by were food delivery drivers and a social worker who helped me after I lost my job. This wasn't about rules, this was about removal. I said nothing, just closed the door slowly. I didn't slam it, I didn't yell, but behind that door I broke. Not into tears, not into panic, but into something deeper. A burning, hot coil of injustice twisting inside my chest. Because I knew this trick. I'd seen it play out on my mama, on my aunt, on every single black woman who dared to take up space in places that weren't built for her. When they can't control you, they try to erase you. I spent the day researching. I called legal aid, explained the whole story. A kind woman named Vanessa told me what I already feared. It was technically a month-to-month lease. He could terminate for no cause as long as he gave proper notice. But this wasn't proper. It was intimidation. It was a scare tactic. It might not hold in court, but that wouldn't stop the damage. Meanwhile, he wasn't done. The next night, I came home to find the hallway lights out. Just my floor. Just my door. The shadows stretched long and deep like they were waiting to eat me. I unlocked the door. The heat was off again. I checked the thermostat. Dead. I wrapped myself in jackets and gloves, curled on the couch, and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I strategized. Because I wasn't about to let a man like Connor Fields scare me back into silence. If he wanted me gone, he'd have to drag me. And I wasn't going quietly. 2 days later, I taped my own letter to my front door, typed in bold. This unit is protected under Chicago Landlord Tenant Ordinance. Any attempt at illegal eviction will be documented and reported. And then I filed a formal complaint with the Department of Housing. I knew it wouldn't stop him. Not yet. But it would buy me time. And in a war like this, time is the sharpest weapon. That weekend, I attended a tenants' rights workshop downtown. Sat in the back. Took notes like my life depended on it. Because it did. There I learned what he didn't want me to know. About slumlord registries, about court filing deadlines, about landlords who preyed on women like me because they thought we were too tired or too poor to fight back. They were right about one thing: I was tired, but not of fighting. Of losing. I went home that night, stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. Eyes heavy, skin dry, soul flickering like a candle in the wind. But underneath it all, there was fire. I whispered to myself, "You are not going anywhere." That same night, a neighbor slid a note under my door. No name. Just 6 words scratched in blue ink. He did it to the last girl. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it, tucked it into my wallet, and made a silent vow. He may have built the walls, but I was about to rewrite the foundation. The next week became a game of shadows. Every time I left my apartment, I felt eyes on me. Through the stained blinds of 3B, from behind the cracked front desk glass, or lingering at the corner of the hallway like smoke. There were whispers now, low and slippery. Like I was the virus. Like I was the one ruining the building. Connor had turned the tenants against me, or at least tried. The girl in 2C stopped speaking to me. A man I'd waved to for 2 years crossed the street when he saw me coming. It was subtle, but it was loud. I tried to keep my head down, but even peace had a curfew here. One night, I returned home after volunteering at the free clinic, something I did to feel human again. And the locks on my door had been changed. Not broken, not jammed, changed. I stood there in the hallway, a bag of groceries in my arms, my key clicking uselessly in the lock. I knew the law, I knew this was illegal. I had a right to occupy that space. But the law isn't what slaps you in the face at 9:48 p.m. when the temperature's below freezing and your coat is too thin. The law isn't what wraps around your chest when you realize you have nowhere to go and no one to call. I pounded on the door, screamed into the wood, nothing. I called Connor's phone. No answer. So I called the cops. When they showed up, I expected protection. What I got was suspicion. 2 officers, white, late 30s. One leaned against the hallway wall like he was already bored. The other asked me 3 times if I actually lived there. I have mail ID. You want the lease agreement? I snapped, pulling out my phone. He shrugged. Sounds like a landlord dispute. Civil issue. Yeah, well, civil issues don't get solved when I'm sleeping in the street. I bit back. They said they'd write a report and told me to figure it out in court. And just like that, they left me standing in my hallway, locked out of my own life. That night I slept in my car. No heater, no pillow, just rage to keep me warm. By morning, I was back on the phone with legal aid. Vanessa was furious. This is retaliatory, she said. He's violating every ordinance we have. We're filing an emergency injunction. The next day we did. But court doesn't move at the speed of injustice, it crawls. So I was given a temporary order of access. A court date 2 weeks out. And just like that, I was back inside. Except now, I knew the war was going to cost more than I thought. The fridge had been unplugged, my food spoiled, my towels wet and mildewed, the bathroom mirror shattered. The air smelled like bleach and something sharp. Chin. There was no doubt in my mind. Connor had been inside, and he wanted me to know it. Still, I unpacked, cleaned, lit a candle. Because I wasn't done, that weekend I attended another housing meeting. This one in Bronzeville, hosted by a black real estate investor named Kendra Lee. She talked about building generational wealth, about reclaiming neighborhoods, about how black women were the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America. Yet, the most evicted. I listened like my life depended on it, because it did. Afterward, I approached her, introduced myself, told her about Connor, about the building, about how I wanted to do more than just survive. I wanted to own. She looked me up and down, not judging, just measuring. Then she handed me a card. Call me, she said, let's talk strategy. Something shifted in me then. A gear, a click, because up until that point I'd only been reacting. But now I was planning, and Connor, he had no idea that while he was trying to tear me down, I was quietly mapping out how to buy the very ground he stood on. I started working 2 jobs. The temp gig at the clinic during the day, blood draws, patient files, sterilizing trays. At night, I clocked in as a delivery driver. Groceries, Thai takeout, late night diapers for tired mothers. I drove through snowstorms, slept 4 hours a night, and ate whatever fit in the glove compartment of my car. I was exhausted. My back ached like it belonged to someone twice my age. But every mile I drove was a brick in the foundation I was building. A war chest, a runway, a promise to myself that I'd never be at the mercy of a man like Connor Fields again. The building got worse. The heat cut out for a full week, and I found myself warming my hands over the stove like it was 1932. Cockroaches danced in the hallway light. Water leaked from the ceiling above my toilet. I documented everything, photos, videos, a Google Drive folder with timestamps and tenant testimonials I'd quietly collected, those who still spoke to me. Some were afraid, others just tired, but they all knew the truth. Connor didn't fix anything unless you looked like someone who could sue. One night I heard him outside my door again. But this time he wasn't knocking. He was whispering. I pressed my ear to the door, heart racing. She's trouble, he said to someone. I don't care what the city says, I want her gone. Hell, I'll shut the whole floor down if I have to. Then laughter. Fading footsteps. He was losing patience, but so was I. I called Kendra the next morning. Told her everything. She was quiet for a while, then asked, You serious about ownership, Monica, or is this about revenge? This, I answered without hesitation. Both. She laughed, not mocking, just surprised. I can work with that, she said. And just like that, we were in business. Kendra connected me to a small network of black investors who specialized in flipping buildings in historically neglected neighborhoods. People who saw beyond peeling paint and broken mailboxes. People who saw potential where others saw blight. But I wasn't just looking to flip. I wanted to buy the building. All of it. Kendra raised an eyebrow when I said that. It's a full 10-unit structure, structurally sound but poorly maintained. Last sold 12 years ago. Connor bought it in cash after a foreclosure. He's not likely to sell unless. Unless what? I asked. She grinned. Unless he's drowning. So we waited. While Connor kept trying to push me out, I kept my head low and my savings account growing. I learned the language of commercial real estate. I memorized zoning laws. I studied his habits. And then, 2 months later, it happened. A lien appeared on the public record. Connor had taken out a private loan against the property and missed payments. Big ones. The man who strutted around like a king was now knee-deep in debt. I felt the shift instantly. He was short-tempered, twitchy. His clothes less pressed, his boots worn. I overheard him arguing on the phone about damn city inspections and worthless tenants. He was cracking, and I was ready. I met with Kendra and two of her partners in a quiet cafe on the south side. We drafted a proposal, a private offer. Low enough to sting, high enough to tempt. We would create an LLC, I would be the managing owner. But we needed leverage, and that's when the twist came. A contact in the city housing office, who owed Kendra a favor, sent us a confidential heads up. Connor was under investigation, unpaid taxes, habitability violations, and more damning, a discrimination complaint filed years ago that had been quietly buried. The kind of thing that, if leaked, would make it impossible for him to rent another unit in this city again. We had everything we needed. I didn't sleep the night before the offer. Just sat in my kitchen, lights off, listening to the radiator hiss and the city hum outside. This building had been a prison, a battleground, a classroom. But I was about to turn it into something else entirely, a crown. The air was thick the day we made the offer. Kendra and I walked into that bland beige office Connor called his headquarters. The blinds were shut, but sunlight still leaked through like it refused to be silenced. Just like me. Connor looked up from behind his cluttered desk, confused, maybe even amused. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair thinner than I remembered, but the smugness still intact. Well, he said, leaning back in his creaky chair. Didn't expect to see you again. Thought you'd finally come to your senses and moved out? I said nothing. Kendra opened a slim folder and slid it across his desk. He raised an eyebrow, opened it lazily, then froze. You're kidding, he said. No, I replied calmly. That's a formal offer to buy this building. All 10 units. As is, cash. He let out a bitter laugh, tossing the papers back like they were junk mail. You think I'm desperate? Kendra didn't blink. No, but the city does. And so does the bank you owe. Connor's face stiffened, his jaw clenched. What the hell do you know about my finances? I know enough, I said. Enough to understand that you're 3 months behind on your balloon payment. That if another lien hits your property, you'll default. I know about the outstanding code violations. The ones you forgot to handle after the last inspection. His hands curled into fists, skin turning a blotchy red. You got some nerve, he growled. No, I said softly. I've got leverage. He glared at me. You're bluffing. I reached into my purse and pulled out a second folder. Thicker. I set it down gently, like a gift. What's that? Proof, I said. Inside was everything. Photos of unsafe conditions, documented complaints, screenshots of his text messages, notarized tenant statements, a timeline of maintenance failures, and the cherry on top, the discrimination complaint from 2017. Buried in bureaucracy, but not forgotten. We found it. Connor flipped through it, each page draining a little more color from his face. You release this, I'll bury you in court, he spat. You won't have a building to fight me from, I said. The city will take it piece by piece. I'm giving you a way out. Sell, walk away, or drown in your own mess. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then his voice dropped, low and venomous. You little Kendra cut him off. Careful. You're speaking to the future owner of this building. Another beat of silence. Then finally the collapse. His eyes dimmed. His shoulders slumped. And just like that, the lion turned to a caged dog. What's your real angle? He muttered. Ownership, I said. For every woman you tried to push out, For every tenant you disrespected. For my mama, who scrubbed men like you out of office buildings and never got a thank you. And for me. He didn't sign that day, but 3 days later we got the call. He'd accepted. The LLC was formed, the transfer processed, keys exchanged. I stood in the same hallway he used to prowl, only this time I had the deed in my hand. Tenants peeked from their doors, confused. I smiled and raised my voice. Good morning, neighbors. My name is Monica Braxton, and I'm your new landlord. Someone clapped, then another, and another. The hallway, once silent and cold, began to fill with warmth. And just like that, the building began to breathe again. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The first thing I did was remove his name. Everywhere it was stamped, on rental notices, on outdated bulletins, even on a rusting plaque outside the building. I took it down, scratched it off, replaced it, not with mine, but with the name of the community group I formed, Carter Tenants United. This wasn't just about me anymore. It never really was. I held the first building-wide meeting in the lobby, where no one had gathered in years. People came with arms folded, eyes cautious. They expected threats, rent hikes, maybe another lecture about quiet hours. Instead, they got coffee, donuts, smiles, and answers. I bought this building to protect it, I said. Not to squeeze it dry, the rent stays the same for now. Repairs begin Monday. And if you've got a maintenance issue, here's my number. Not an office, not a form, me. There were stunned faces. One older woman started crying quietly. I've lived here 28 years, she whispered. Ain't no one ever said that before. That night I walked the halls alone, checking each floor with a clipboard in hand. Every crack, every leak, every busted bulb. I noted it down. It was work, but it was mine. A week later, I made my final move. I sent Connor a photo. It was a snapshot of the front of the building, freshly painted. A young black girl, my niece, visiting from out of town, stood under the new sign I'd had custom made. Braxton Residences, Esther 2025. The message came back 5 minutes later. You smug, petty little... I blocked the number. I didn't need his words anymore. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, one final rent check, unsigned, torn in half. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was finished. The court documents never had to be filed. We kept everything quiet, tight. Kendra called it a clean kill. I called it justice, but not everyone was happy. 2 tenants moved out within the first month. Said the culture of the building was changing. Said it felt too different. I didn't fight them. I let them go. Their units were filled within a week. Young families, veterans, an art student who offered to paint a mural in the stairwell. Life bloomed where resentment used to rot. And me? I kept working. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My license was reactivated. I picked up shifts at the clinic again. Treated coughs, stitched cuts, helped elders navigate their prescriptions. People looked at me differently now, not as a tenant or a problem, but as someone who built something. And yet, every once in a while, I'd see his shadow in my mind. Connor. Standing at the edge of the hallway, arms crossed, mouth twisted in disbelief, because the one woman he tried to evict had come back with a clipboard and a title deed, and bought the whole damn building out from under him. Some nights I sit on the rooftop. The same roof that used to leak every time it rained. The same roof he ignored for years while tenants dragged buckets into their living rooms. Now it's clean, quiet, strong beneath my feet. From up here, Chicago looks like a city made of stars. Some broken, some blinding, all trying to shine. I think about how close I came to losing everything. About the night I slept in my car praying for daylight. About the shame, the silence, the heat that never came on. The doorknobs that never turned, the lies written in red Sharpie. And then I remember the keys in my pocket, not just to my apartment, to all of it. I remember walking through Unit 4C, where a single mother now lives with her 2 daughters, both giggling over coloring books. I remember the older man in 1A who plays jazz too loud and thinks no one notices. I remember the teenage boy in 2B who fixed the broken gate and never asked for $1. This place isn't perfect, but it's ours. People ask me now, Monica, how did you do it? And I tell them the truth. I got mad. I got strategic. And I stopped asking for permission to exist. Because if I had waited for someone to hand me power, I'd still be begging in a freezing hallway with a useless key in my hand. The system isn't broken. It was built this way. To wear us down one notice, one eviction, one insult at a time. But here's what they never expect. that we'll stay, that we'll fight, that we'll buy the land they tried to bury us in. So, to the woman out there right now sitting in a cold apartment thinking no one sees her, I see you. And I swear on everything I own, you are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not wrong. You are just up against a world that profits from your silence. Speak anyway. And when your voice shakes, let it. Because one day, your story might just be the one that breaks the cycle, like mine did. So share this. Let somebody know. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever it takes to keep this story moving. Because this isn't just about me. It's about every soul who's ever been told they don't belong in the very place they built. And to that man who once said, "You people don't last long in my buildings," you're right. We don't last. We take over.